Hello there once again, it's your old pal Locke the Bounty Hunter, and on today's very special episode, I am doing something that I only do because I have the best damn subs in the known universe. I am watching a segment from MSCCP. That is the absolute truth because I came across this thing, the nightmare around modern dating. So I hope you guys truly do appreciate the amount of pain that I go through for your benefit. So if you wouldn't mind taking a second to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because I really think we need to get together and get the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm on this one. Oh boy, we are in for a treat. So let's not waste any more time and dive right in, shall we?
A growing number of younger Americans aren't dating.
Nope.
They're not hanging out. And no, they're not even hooking up.
What business of that is yours? You're the one who actually promoted this kind of behavior.
For so many women who want to date men, dating has become a total nightmare. And there are a number of reasons why. I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders-Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki.
Brace yourselves, gentlemen and gents. This might hurt a little bit.
So I have heard from a lot of young women who want to date young men that there are none. There are no guys.
That's because you asked women. You didn't even bother asking the men. There is the problem.
They're trying to connect. They often use dating apps, but find a total lack of connection. And it seems that the men they are meeting don't really share the same priorities.
That's because men have different priorities, you propaganda spewing blowhard.
If they show up. And women, especially career-driven women, say the men they're meeting are more interested in sex and not looking for a deeper connection, and that it's becoming more and more of a problem. So what's changing?
Well, what's changing is the fact that you have a majority of the women going after the top 5% of men. These dudes are ripped, they are wealthy, they work incredibly hard, and every single one of them thinks that they're entitled to this guy. And this guy is more than happy to give them a roll in the hay and do a little bedroom bounce, but that's all he's interested in. These career-driven women are insufferable, and Chad doesn't want to deal with that. It's pretty simple.
Because not that long ago, people used to meet each other through work, let's be honest.
Which is an HR nightmare, and we are not even touching that one with a 10-foot pole, sister.
Or through friends, maybe at a bar or in a college campus. And it gave people a chance to actually learn about each other, to break through the filters, to demonstrate kindness and show commitment and values.
Which are all things that the modern woman lacks. Let's just be real here. People don't meet at bars anymore because modern women have grown dependent on drinking too much alcohol. People don't meet on college campuses anymore for the same reason as meeting at the bar, but also because college campuses have become a politicized liberal hellhole where everybody is just incredibly annoying and woefully misinformed on world events. And this is all because of ideologies that you recklessly have promoted for the last couple of decades. You're not going to take any responsibility for the actions, though, because you don't have to. You're rich and annoying.
To actually earn affection. But today, so many people are living life through a screen.
Which is a life that you promote.
They're not going out nearly as much, not to church, not to movies, or even to the office.
Yeah, gee whiz, it's almost as if we had something cataclysmic happen about 4 years ago, which completely altered the perception of everybody on the face of the planet by forcing them to stay locked in their homes while you openly condemn them from wanting to do the regular things that humans have been doing for centuries. Gee, I wonder what that was. Man, I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually.
Opportunities to fall in love are falling by the wayside, meaning people are making decisions by swiping left on their smartphones rather than truly learning to connect. The highs, the lows, the disappointments, all of that stuff.
Well, that's just because modern women have been told that disappointments equal failure. That if they're not 100% happy in whatever relationship they find themselves in, that means that the relationship isn't for them. That's what this is about.
It's all part of the process. And it's affecting mental health too. According to a recent study of people over the age of 18, those who used swipe-based dating apps experienced significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression.
That's because the apps are forced to keep you single. That's what they're designed to do. They are not designed to find you a mate. They are designed to make that company money.
Another study showed a link between using dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, and this is a big one, a feeling of exclusion from the world.
Imagine a woman saying all of those things, right? She's going to get an unlimited amount of sympathy, but if a dude says the same thing, then he's going to be told to man up and go out and be a man. You ask any average man who's been on a dating app before, they will tell you that if you rely on them too much, it will mess up your perception on life itself. That is why so many people are walking away from apps right now. They're just not healthy.
Feeling so left out. And when women do go to coffee shops, what we're hearing is that they try, or to a club or the grocery store, or anything where they get out and interact with people, they say the men that they want to meet just don't share their ideals.
Exactly. The men that they want to meet are based off of unrealistic expectations. This isn't a sympathy thing. This is entitlement. They brought all of this on themselves.
It's partly because so many young men are spending their lives also logged in, overly influenced by a flood of whatever you can find online. Porn, video games, toxic masculinity. Who needs
toxic masculinity? You would think that if a man was toxically masculine, that he would actually be pursuing women and harassing them. Okay, now I am not about to dismiss the detrimental effects that pornography has had on this generation, because it's truly messed up a lot of people. But at the same time, it is unfair to be blaming the men for this mess. Most average men are doing the best that they can. It is you and your brood of hive-minded nincompoops who have told us that we're not good enough, that we're toxically masculine, that we are misogynists, racists, hateful. You put all of those labels on us, and you expect us to just turn around, take that to heart, and end up becoming the type of men that you think that you desire. It doesn't work that way, and it never will.
It's the real thing when you can get something better, and I put that in quotes, by scrolling. Here's what Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU, told us on Morning Joe about some of the reasons why men are becoming like this.
This ought to be good.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need...
Wait, who's saying that? All you guys do is make fun of men for doing that. I believe there is a term that you use to describe the men who spend all of their times in the basement on social media. Oh yeah, that's right. You call them incels. So you make fun of them. You demean them. You undermine them. So what benefit are you actually proposing?
To get a job, go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks.
What's wrong with that? What is wrong with using the financial market to improve your financial situation? That's why it's there. If there's a man out there who's figured out the crypto market and is making bank, and if he's trading stocks and making money, he's not demeaning himself for a corporation that's going to bleed him dry through taxes and demeaning work. What's wrong with that?
You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor. And
hold up. So you're saying that because a dude is trading crypto and trading stocks and making a profit based on his own merits, his knowledge, and his experience, that makes him a loser? But if he has a job at an office that he hates, surrounded by people who don't respect him, all of a sudden he's a winner in your book? Wow. You do realize that the guys who are making money doing this kind of stuff, they have so much free time that they are working out, they are improving themselves, and they've also realized their self-worth to the point where they are not willing to settle for a 30-year-old liberally brainwashed nitwit who's just going to lecture him and how he's a terrible person and must change for her. Where's the benefit in that?
Showering to get a romantic relationship, you have you porn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes.
Okay, what does rom-coms have to do with a dude trading crypto? You do realize that those are not the core demographic for romantic comedies, right? I mean, for the love of tennis, dude, you have not made a single point here.
True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like.
No, real victory in real life is to be able to work hard and to make your own freedom. That's what men are doing right now. They are tired of this. They are tired of being blamed for everything. They are tired of being lectured. They are tired of just being thrown into these derogatory boxes that you've conjured to further the divide between men and women. So what do? They go out and they make their own business. They make their own money. They sharpen their minds. They strengthen their bodies, and they find their own peace. That is what makes a man successful. Which you clearly have no idea, because you look like the type of guy who inherited his money from his dead grandfather.
And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life.
Yes. That is exactly right. What is wrong with that? Men want to risk the least amount possible for the maximum amount of gain. Yeah, that's right. Men want to expend the least amount of risk for the maximum amount of gain. That is how it works. That is how it's always worked, even during the hunter-gatherer days. Now, I got a C+ in biology, and I slept through 99% of my classes, and even I know this.
And they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory, they're more prone to misogynistic content, they're less likely to believe in climate change, and some become really bad citizens.
Well, gee whiz, that's awfully convenient. All of the woes of society are just being thrown on the shoulders of men who can't even be bothered to be treated like dirt by modern women. Well, color me shocked.
Producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
But you just said that these men were making money through trading stocks and crypto. Like, which one is it, dude?
Wow. As Professor Galloway pointed out, 1 in 3 relationships used to begin at work. Now young people are not going into the office as often.
That is because of the cataclysmic event that happened back in 2020, which forced people out of the workplace and into their homes. Now, you're just gonna forgo that because you're a propaganda prostitute. You really have no other leg to stand on. But even if that wasn't the case, people don't hook up at the office anymore because it is just too much of a gamble. Men have enough trouble at the office alone just trying to get their work done without worrying about whether or not Sally in the next cubicle over is going to be trying to file a false claim against him. Men have too much to lose. That's why they don't bother anymore.
And if you are a young man at work, are you more or less inclined to express some sort of romantic interest in a potential partner now than you were 40 years ago?
Well, okay, 40 years ago, which is the 80s, mind you, that was a completely different office culture. My God, I was barely around in the 80s and I know this.
The answer is clearly no. By the way, men and women have been told in many places that if you have feelings for someone at work, you have to go to HR first. That'll kill the moment, and I get why that's the policy. I get how we got here. Having said that,
how can you get it when you're judging men for not doing it?
The unforeseen consequences of the Me Too movement, or of Me Too in general, and
For the love of the intergalactic space god Robletard, all hail. That is not an unforeseen consequence. That is an expected consequence, one that you have celebrated for decades.
problems that began the movement, that's a show we need to do.
It's really not. You just summed it up in the previous segment, because it's pretty much the man's fault. It's because he's not going to work because you forced him out of the office, and it's because he thinks for himself and makes his own money. That's what this is all about here.
Some point, and we have to have a really honest conversation about that, but that's not this show.
Of course it's not, because if you have an honest conversation, you're not bashing men relentlessly. Because if you wanted to have an honest conversation, you wouldn't get some bald chick, some woman who's over the hill, and a fellow propaganda monger to support your claims. I mean, come on, let's just be honest here.
I'm just saying, having to go to HR is kind of a hard start. Jen, why don't you start? What are the biggest concerns you have here?
Yeah, look, Mika, first of all, I met my husband at work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He asked me out over email and brought me ice cream. It was a much more traditional way of meeting someone.
I feel so sorry for that guy. That guy's life must be a living hell. I would not condemn my worst enemy's life to a marriage to Jen Psaki. No man deserves that level of punishment.
Look, I think the biggest concern I have here is the mental health impact on young people. And we've seen that in...
Don't you mean young women? We all know you mean... Wait, I forgot. That's right. You can't say young women because that is transphobism or something. I don't know.
Statistics and a ton of reporting about the disconnect, and you just went over a fair amount of it. For men, certainly, and also for women.
You don't care about men. You have just spent like 10 minutes blaming men for all of this. We did not start this fight. This was our response to the insufferable entitlement of modern women. They're the ones who said we weren't good enough, so we just walked away. And yet, we're the ones who are hate-mongering conspiracy theorists. Even though living on tinfoil lane is incredibly fun, I'm not gonna lie.
And I just think anecdotally of talking to a lot of women I work with who...
You work with a lot of crusty broads. They are not representative of what's happening in today's society, and you know that.
I have the pleasure of working with on my team. They, men and women have been wanting to just have sex for decades, right? That's not new. I think they're still probably they're hooking up still, right? But it's more about that deeper connection. And as Scott said, relationships are work. Emotional connections are work.
Yes, they are. Work that women are not willing to do. A man is willing to put in the work for a woman if he deems her worth the effort. That hasn't changed. What's changed is the fact that the woman feels like she should have to do nothing and be able to feel happy all of the time, which is impossible. She's on medication.
Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it may be, or a mentor relationship. And there's such a cotton candy aspect of the world we're living in right now that's also a fantasy world, right? You mentioned porn, that's of course on the sex side, but it's also just how people portray themselves on social media. It's not connected to the difficulty and the struggle that often you have to go through in order to have the most rewarding relationship, the most rewarding friendships, the most rewarding mentorships, and the mental health impact is the biggest concern.
Well, that's because modern women are incapable of feeling these things. I've gone over this hundreds of times. Modern women are so mentally broken that they cannot experience legitimate joy in their lives. They are always unhappy with the men that get into relationships with them. They're always unhappy with them because those men are never good enough and they'll never change for her. Men just had enough. We're going out and finding our own peace and finding our own joy within ourselves because we're capable of it.
As connection is what makes life joyful. And that to me is what I worry about the most.
Yes, connections with other human beings are important. Guess who promoted the severance of said connections 4 years ago, Jen?
Yes, Simone, Americans are more lonely and isolated than ever. There's data on this. And what do you make of Professor Galloway's remarks on Morning Joe that we're producing too many of the most dangerous people in the world, namely young, broke, and lonely men?
Actually, the most dangerous man in the world is the man who has nothing to lose. The man who has nothing to lose will go to the biggest lengths to prove his point because he has nothing to lose, and that includes his life. That is the most dangerous man. That and Keith Richards, because he can't be eliminated by conventional methods. It's been proven by science.
You know, Mika, I thought that a lot of Professor Galloway's comments were interesting. I listened to the whole segment twice yesterday.
Good for you! Congratulations! Because,
one, I think that people are going out. And also, I don't think that I didn't meet my husband at work. I actually met my husband going out. I was at an event. After the event,
she was at a bar. She met her husband at a bar and she immediately broke him. I just have the feeling that her husband is just a broken man. It's really sad.
Some folks introduced, at the time, he was what was known in Washington, D.C. as the Nightmare. And some folks that I know asked me, oh, do you know the Nightmare? I said, I've heard of him. I do not know him. I've never had the pleasure. And
it's amazing how all of these women are just bragging about how they're in relationships while just demeaning the people who don't want them. There is nothing of merit being discussed here. They are just bragging about the facts that they found simps and broke them.
That was I like to say we've been dating ever since. I think he might take issue with my timeline. So I would argue that people are going out in different social settings, but I also think the apps, for example, are not terrible. One of my best girlfriends met her husband on the apps.
That is a rarity. That is an extreme rarity, and you know that.
You know, I know a lot of people who are meeting folks on the apps, and it is opening up, frankly, the world of the dating pool bigger than just who comes to your neighborhood bar or who you might see in the office. And so
That's the problem, though. The reason why the dating apps are so terrible is because it expands the options to hundreds of miles around you. The reason why people would actually get together a lot easier was because of the limited options in your circles. That was the reason why. By opening up this wide range, you're just disregarding the perfectly good men in order to get to the top 5% of men. That's all the dating apps do.
I think that is a good thing. Look, I think about these lonely...
Oh my God, look at those nails. Oh my dear Lord. Woman, your nails are longer than your hair. What is the matter with you?
Broke, dangerous men. I don't really know, Mika. I'm not sold on the lonely, broke, and dangerous men. I think that we are producing a generation of younger people who do not have hustle and drive.
No, there's plenty of hustle and drive out there. There are plenty of men out there who are making their own business. They are working on themselves, and they are putting in tons of work and grinding out results. They have plenty of hustle and drive. They're just not willing to waste it on you.
And the lack of hustle and drive, one is where I do agree with Professor Galloway, in that, you know, there's a younger generation of people who would rather be home than go out and socialize. But I think
because there's no point in going out and socializing. If your average guy goes out and tries to socialize with a woman, there's like a 95% chance that she is going to deem this guy as creepy. She'll either disrespect him, publicly humiliate him, or the nuclear option, calling the cops on him to file a false claim. These are legitimate risks. What gain is there for these women who are willing to do that?
I think the idea that folks are not going out, that folks are not socializing is not...
That's because there's nowhere to go. Everything closed down because of something that happened 4 years ago. Something that happened, I think you might remember it. It shut everything down and locked people in their homes. How convenient you expect people to forget this massive cataclysmic event.
True. More so, I think it's that the pool of men that women would like to date is smaller. There's more.
Yeah. That is because relationships are about compromise. A self-respecting man is willing to compromise on certain things he's looking for in a woman. However, the modern woman is unwilling to compromise on anything because a compromise is akin to settling, which is a massive insult to men.
more women than men. It has always been that way. When I moved to Washington, D.C., that's what everyone said. It's like, for every one guy, there's 10 women that want to date him. So
that is why we are in the mess that we are in. You are playing 3 leagues above your league.
There's that.
Yeah. Well, I see the numbers that you're talking about. I really connect with your reticence about the lonely, broken, dangerous. I guess
No, you don't. You just said that we were all broke, lonely, and dangerous men, that we were the worst kind. You don't agree with her.
The inference that you have to have a woman to fix that, like...
No, you're saying that. That is all that you have been saying, that the only way that these men are going to be successful in life is if they have a woman to control them.
You can fix that yourself, and not be, I hear you about personal responsibility for sure. But I'm seeing in my world and hearing from a lot of young people who work with me, who work for me.
So brainwashed interns? That's what we're talking about here. Brainwashed interns. If anybody actually voices their own opinions on MSCCP, I'm telling you, they won't just get fired, they'll be sent to a freaking gulag. They're not going to tell you the truth.
Who they don't go out as much. There's like nowhere to go, or no one to go with, or it's the same old every time, and they're on the phones. So
it's a lifestyle that you've been promoting for a long time. This is nothing new.
Much. And whom I'm wondering, given the consequences of loneliness and isolation from a policy perspective, because the Surgeon General recently declared the loneliness as an epidemic.
Yeah, that's because upper respiratory infections are so 4 years ago.
Is there an obligation on the part of our government or policies to address some of these growing social disconnects that are happening in our country?
What is the government supposed to do? Like, make it a law that people have to date each other? Like, no, the government should not be involved in this. The government has made enough of a mess as it is.
So, I agree with so much. My mind is just spinning with thoughts here.
No, they're not. They are most certainly not. Those blank eyes and that face tells you there is very little going on up there, sister.
And all 3 of you. And I'm glad you referenced the Surgeon General, because the 4 of us talk about this a lot, that we are pioneers. We're raising a generation surrounded by technology that we just didn't have access to growing up. And
Okay, so you're a pioneer for raising your children in this era, and everybody is miserable. If you are a pioneer, you are the worst pioneers in the pages of history.
Still seeing the short and long-term impact of that. I love that you just mentioned the Surgeon General report. We talk about it in the context of just this. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
When you look at things like...
The Surgeon General has declared everything that's politically subversive to be a health crisis. Let's just be honest here.
Like smoking. It's not that we think people are going to quit smoking or stop using tobacco, but when you buy a cigarette, it will say there's a warning that this is bad for your health. I was at an office meeting the other day and I saw, a box saying cures, if you need Narcan, it's in this lockbox, get help. It's not that we think people are going to stop using drugs and that there might never be an overdose again. We are aware of it. We have a solution to it. And this is all part of public policy and the importance of having public policy. And I think to have that 80+ page report, number one, you have a Surgeon General who addresses his own issues with loneliness, deep feelings of loneliness.
He hasn't addressed anything. He's just opening up a loophole for more laws to be written to control people. That's all the Surgeon General does. Do you honestly think the Surgeon General has done any good for the American public? I think if it happened once, it was accidentally.
And what governments can do and schools and communities and parents can do. And to both what Jen and Simone just said, I think about this. I met my ex-husband at work.
Exactly. You met your ex-husband at work, your ex, which means that you divorced him, which goes to show that you don't know what you're talking about.
And I met my current boyfriend, and I will say,
your current bang buddy, you mean? There is not a self-respecting man in the world who would be willing to call you his girlfriend.
period where I was feeling very lonely and was invited to this party. I did not want to go. I just wanted to stay at home and just probably be on my phone, watch The Diplomat or something. I dragged myself to that party, and that is how I met him. And so it's we have to talk about it, but we also have to be open to experiences. Sometimes even at our generation, we have to push ourselves to do it.
You don't want to have a conversation. You just want to be told that you're right.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Huma, because, and Simone, to your point that people are going out, they are, but there are a lot of people who are in Huma's position where they have to, it takes everything in them just to get out the door.
Use your big girl words. It's not that hard.
And there's a growing number of cases like that.
Look at all of those faces. They have absolutely no interest in this subject whatsoever. And that is the beauty of MSCCP. And that's going to do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. So thank you so much for checking this out and bearing this precious brand of cringe with me today. If you find yourself liking this content and enjoying my particular brand of comedy, I sincerely hope that I have earned your subscription today. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with everybody so we can give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you once again, gentlemen and gents, and until next time, peace out, homies.